Hey, I am Gigi and I am an ex-Amazon senior leader and interview bar raiser. So I know exactly what it takes to get hired by Amazon. Now, this is a very specific video for all of the candidates out there who are coming through on the Military Pathways program. I seem to get a lot of Military Pathways candidates reaching out to me. I don't know whether that's something about me or whether it's just representative of how much hiring that program does. Either way, they're quite a specific group of people, having come from a very specific background, going through a very specific process. And hey, I've worked in that process. I have done bar raising on military pathway panels. And as I said, those candidates do come to me with very specific questions. So if you're interviewing at Amazon and you're coming through the Military Pathways program, or I don't know, maybe even you're coming through a different program, but you have that military background, then you really need to understand how best to represent yourself in interview with a whole bunch of civvies. In the majority of cases, the fact of the matter will be the people that will interview you will be civilians in the main and will probably always have been civilians. So you folks know how, sometimes there's a little bit of a challenge in terms of the translation between what you say and how you say it, and the civvy world and how they understand what you say and how you say it. So I am offering you what I think are the three most important things to bear in mind and try to bring into your interview process with them. So before I started this kind of preparation for this video, I did a bit of checking with some of my colleagues in Amazon who do military recruiting, just to make sure that they thought I was focusing on the right things, which they did. So I am feeling pretty good about this advice. Right, so here we go. There are three things that if you're coming from that military background, I really recommend you work on and you think about as you are going into your interview. First thing is the use of we. So I know it's a very consistent piece of advice, right? No matter kind of where you're interviewing, whether you're military or non-military, you are always going to hear that advice about trying to avoid the use of we. But in my experience, this is particularly difficult for vets to get their heads around. Trying to avoid the term we and kind of trying to talk about I and the me as an individual seems to be particularly challenging for that group of people. Now, I've not been in the military. Okay, well, that's a lie. I was in the Army Cadets, Company Sergeant Major. Yeah, I know, it doesn't count. Okay, all right, forget I said that actually. So I kind of have a little bit of understanding that it's all about the unit, right? Success is, even more than in a business world, absolutely fundamentally built on the unit, your ability to work together, your ability to trust each other, all of that good stuff. It really has to be all about the unit. And that makes total sense. But because that's your experience and that's the kind of context that you come from, it seems to be very natural to talk about the unit, to talk about the we. But from an interviewer's point of view, they really need to understand your very specific contribution to the we. So when you're thinking about creating your examples and when you speak in interview, please try to separate out your individual contribution, what you specifically does, from what was finally delivered by the unit as a whole. I really recommend practicing because I know how unnatural it is to think and speak in that way if you are coming from that type of background. But focus on that I. This is what I delivered. This is how I delivered. This is what I thought. This is what I did. This is what I said. Okay? All right, so that's my first big one. And I promise you it will make a massive difference in your interview if you can nail that. So then the second one to think about is to, I guess, try really hard to rebalance your answers. And what I mean by that is I've noted and then confirmed with my military colleagues is that quite often the balance between a I mean, if you're using the star format, I'm kind of assuming at this stage that folks are all building your examples based on the star format, because that's what Amazon say they prefer: situation, task, action, result. Yeah, so my experience is that military background candidates tend to focus the weight of their answer on situation and task, and then underweight action and results. Now, my slightly ignorant hypothesis as to why this happens is that I suspect that situation briefings and orders are the foundation of success when it comes to the military. And then you get the job done, right? No debate, no messing about. That's that. And maybe that's why military candidates tend to put the weight in the wrong place. Now, from a business context, particularly in your interview, what you really want to do is balance the weight of your example towards action. You really only want to spend a relatively small proportion of your time when you give your example on the situation and task, and the vast, overwhelming majority of your narrative on action. So that's another one to think about when you are practicing your examples. I know it will be another one that will definitely make a difference for you in interview. So the third one is also something that everybody says very commonly about non-military candidates, and I have said it myself many times before in the rest of my videos. If you've seen them, if you haven't, go watch them. And that's the use of acronyms. Now, the only difference is really in the number of acronyms in the military outstrip anything you'll see in the corporate world. I don't know, maybe 10-fold, 15-fold, I don't know, whatever. I did a bit of research when I was preparing for this, and I found a Wikipedia page. Now, I know Wikipedia, how reliable is it? But I found a Wikipedia page about the US military acronyms, and I started to try and count them. And then I got bored when I got to about, I don't know, 200. The page just kept on going in alphabetical order. So I thought I'd give up. There are just so many acronyms in the military, it's pretty much another language. Now, it's very familiar to you folks, and it makes total sense when you talk to each other. But the civvies like me, other than maybe the most common ones, we are never going to follow. So try to avoid the acronyms if you can. And I do say this even in the corporate context. If you can't avoid an acronym, or you have to say the same thing over and over and over, and maybe it's a very long phrase or a very long word, it is okay to use the acronym, but just make sure that the first time you use it, you explain it. Check with your interviewer that they've understood it, obviously not in a patronizing and condescending way. And once you've confirmed that they've understood, you can then just keep using it. In a military context, I really think that this is probably one of the biggest difficulties that I had when I was interviewing military pathway candidates or candidates from a military background. It's really uncomfortable as an interviewer to keep having to stop a candidate and kind of say, oh, hang on, sorry, I don't really understand that acronym. Can you explain it to me? So if you can nail that one, you will definitely have a much smoother interview for yourself and obviously for your interviewer. And they'll be able to spend all of their kind of mental processing activity, listening and thinking about what maybe the right follow-up questions are for you, rather than racking their brains trying to interpret acronyms. Okay, so that's it. I really hope that was helpful for you. I'm delighted to hear from you if you have any questions, but hopefully that has ticked a box for you in terms of something that will be super useful in your interview preparation. Now, what you need to do is click the link here to claim your free Day One Careers Customer Obsession Taster course. Watch that and you'll nail every customer obsession question asked of you in your Amazon interview. Or if you want to do that a little bit later, why don't you check out more here of our incredible insights and advice on Amazon interview preparation.